Well, hello. I'm Todd with Well Companies. Welcome to the Well Trucking family. We have a video update today. Today we're talking with Matt Hazy. He is one of our dedicated drivers. He runs out of Cleveland, Tennessee. Matt started with us in November of 2018, so almost 6 months ago. Matt has 10 years of driving experience altogether, and 6 months of that is with the Well Company family here. So we wanted to get Matt back into our office here and just really kind of sit down and talk about his experience as far as getting onboarded with us, his experience with how it's been so far, his recruiting experience, and then any other things that maybe could benefit future drivers that are looking to come onto Well Companies also. So Matt, welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate all the
you
hard
having
work.
me.
Thanks. It's not every day we get to find good hard drivers that like yourself that come in and knock it out of the park. But absolutely appreciate everything you do for us, and we're always looking as well. And so part of the reason for having Matt here is so that he can go over the whole experience of onboarding. So how did you find or hear about Well Company?
Well, I'd seen the trucks before in the past, but I was driving locally. And there was a guy that would come home, and I saw him every weekend. I live out in the country, and he wasn't far from my house, and he always park his tractor in his front yard. And I thought, well, there's a company that's obviously home every weekend.
Sure.
And my wife and I became empty nesters, and she travels. She's only home on the weekend. She's a software instructor.
Okay.
And I just getting bored sitting around the house. And local, you get to be home, but you just don't make great money. I was struggling to see $750 take home a week.
Okay.
And working long hours to get it.
So back this up 1 second. So you were actually home every day,
I was home every day,
and you chose
off on the weekend.
because we have a lot of drivers that will call in looking for home nightly positions or home, more than weekly, and sometimes they don't realize that sometimes is more work than just being out for the week.
If you're working for a union shop, which takes knowing somebody to get on there,
Mm-hmm.
you can make great money
Sure.
locally, but you're also going to unload your freight usually.
Mm-hmm.
I ran paper products within about a 250-mile area around the Chattanooga area.
Okay.
And I liked my job, worked with good people, but it just didn't pay, and I was missing seeing different things.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting home all the time, alone. And so I talked to my wife, and she said, well, why don't you go back out on the road, but just make sure you have the availability to come home every weekend.
Right.
And I started doing my research, and I looked into Well. I went to the website, and I saw that they had the McDonough terminal, so I knew I'd be close to Georgia. Started seeing that there was regional dedicated positions available. That was a plus. And so I reached out to recruiting, and Randell called me.
Okay.
And I said to him, if you don't have more than 5 minutes to talk, because recruiters are notorious for wanting to get you to an orientation, but they don't always want to answer your
Sure.
questions. And a lot of times they'll have the nerve to say, well, we'll cover that in orientation.
How did Randall treat you?
He said, fire away. And our first conversation was probably 25 minutes.
Nice.
And he answered every question I had. And that was just the beginning. I talked to him over about a 10-day period, at least every other day.
Right.
But I also went on Facebook to the Well page and found drivers that were currently driving for Well. And I messaged them and said, hey, I'm thinking about coming on board. They were the best recruiters.
Awesome.
They told me, we get paid a minimum amount. And I was like, what? Because I've never done refrigerated before, and I've heard the horror stories about you have to sit 8 hours and you don't get paid, but for a few hours of it, and it ruins your day. And
What's been the reality?
The reality is I have sat 8 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and I've watched TV in my truck with a refrigerator while I'm making it a minimum amount that day.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no stress. I mean, it's wonderful because I make that $200 a day, whether I drive If I drive more than that, they pay me more than that.
Sure.
If I cover 200 miles that day, I get paid $200.
So, what Matt speaks of, for those of you who are watching this and not familiar with our company, we do have a minimum pay guarantee. And essentially, in geographic locations based on needs, it's either $1,400 a week minimum based on a 7-day work week. If you work lesser, you would subtract from that. But if a guy wants to be out, we just use a week, a 7-day model. $1,400 a week is your potential minimum, or about $200 a day is what it equates to. And so the benefit of that is those days we realize that our guys, just like any other place, they're going to sit in docks, they're going to get delayed, and then a lot of our freight being refrigerated is shorter length of haul. So the reality is you might not get 2,500 miles a week running dedicated, but we're going to make sure you're compensated fairly for your time. So more often than not, guys make over the minimum pay guaranteed, but for a 5-day work week, you're guaranteed $1,000 minimum. 6 days it would be $1,200. 7 days it would be $1,400.
And I'll say this: most of my deposits, even coming home for like a 34, sometimes it's longer. I've had, in the 5 months, I've had 3 deaths in my family. I had a daughter diagnosed with cancer.
Sorry.
And I had a bout just recently with the cellulitis in my leg. Mm-hmm. And Well has been wonderful about making sure I got home for everything I needed. In some cases, taking a load off of me,
right,
so I could go home right away.
That's good.
In the case of finding out my daughter had cancer, there are so many companies that just don't care, and Well is not like that. And I've even apologized. Look, I hate doing this to you guys.
Right.
I'm in a place in my life where I don't want to answer my phone because what's the next thing that's going to happen?
Sure.
But they've been wonderful about it, and now that I understand fully how the pay system works, most of my paychecks are $1,000 or more take home.
Take home.
And that's even with when they're running me like Georgia to Wisconsin and back.
Right.
Even coming home for a 34-hour reset, I'll get a $900 paycheck.
So what's the reality? You brought something up earlier with Randell, and I've been in transportation almost 25 years now, right? In all facets. I was a driver and everything in between. And the one thing is always, when it comes to recruiting, at least my pet peeve is the stereotype of that we're just trying to sell you something to get you in the door. And I can assure you that we at Well Company, we don't want anybody coming here under a wrong impression, whether it's Randell or Angel or Tambra or any of the recruiters that are in here. We make sure you're fed the right information and made sure that you know that the job is a match. And it sounds like that was a success in your case, correct?
I've been driving for 10 years. Recruiters are notoriously untruthful.
Sure.
I even had one position with a company. I didn't even stay through the whole orientation because I couldn't find a truth in what I've been told.
Wow.
I came here and, well, first off, Randell found out that my dad was raised in this area and I had cousins here.
Oh.
He said, "How would you like to come up on Friday? Because I can get a cheaper flight. We'll put you up in the hotel room for the whole weekend. You can visit with your family."
Right.
And I did. I saw cousins I hadn't seen since 1978.
Nice.
It was wonderful.
What was the hotel room like?
Fantastic.
Okay.
It was great. And I did not have not even a misunderstanding with Well. Everything I was told was true.
Good.
Everything. And when I came here, my BS detector was on high.
Sure.
And when I started orientation all the way through, everything that we had covered was absolutely true. And I made sure everybody knew about that. I talked to Roberta about it. And then I got to meet, I made sure that Randell knew exactly how much that meant to me.
Good.
I'm not a young guy. I'll be 60 in January. Okay. And I plan on working until I'm 65, and I plan on staying with Well.
That's great.
The really nice thing about it was I was talking to some guy named Chris when I went over to meet my driver manager named Chris. I had no idea who this guy was. He was standing outside, got to talking to me, asking about. I find out he's the president of the company.
Right.
And when I was my second load back to De Pere, my driver manager Chris and Chris, the company president, CEO, whatever,
Yep.
were standing outside, and as I dropped my trailer and bobtailed over and came over to talk to my driver manager, he said, "Come inside and I'll talk to you." And the company president looked at me and said, "Matt, I want to tell you, your driver manager was just bragging on you." And he said, "I appreciate the fact that," he said, if more drivers anticipated problems before they happen like you do, it would be wonderful, because like if it was bad weather, I'd call in and say, "I don't know if I'm going to be able to go as far as I need to today."
Right.
And they were like, "Shut down if you don't feel safe." To have people that high in management approach you and be that nice to you.
And that is, when you look at trucking companies and I think all of us can say we've been around here long enough to know how the competition is, and some of us may have been with the competition and worked in this whole industry. I think the one thing that brings everybody together at well companies is truly the family atmosphere. Our owner Bruce, who you were just talking
Yes.
with here today when you came over here, Bruce started the company with a truck and a vision, and here we are today. 400 and some trucks later, we're still growing, and we're going to continue to grow our company 100 trucks year over year. And it started with that mentality and that drive. And his son Chris, the president, same story. He drove as well. It's a trucking company owned by drivers. So Bruce gets it, Chris gets it, and the company gets it. It's our vision, and really it's our drive that really wants to make sure that you guys have the best possible lifestyle out there that we can give you with the conditions you're under.
Well, and that was another thing. I was just sitting in the driver's lounge, and this guy comes in and says, "Hey," and I saw Bruce, and I was like, "He owns this joint."
Right.
And he was just checking to see how I was, and I told him I've been with it for 5 months and I love it. And he goes, "I need to meet with you later." And here we are. But let me say this: if you're a driver thinking about coming to well, there are so many irritants out on the road, and you know what they are. You send in for a com check and you're stuck on a phone for 2 hours. At well, you send in a message, and I've literally waited no more than 20 minutes. Usually within 5 minutes, my com checks are taken care of for lumpers. If there's an issue with my truck, it's been fixed, and fixed right. One time this winter, my tri-pack went out, and it was frigidly cold. Well, I was running through Madison, and they said, "Just stop at the Thermo King. We'll get you a motel, and they'll fix it." And they literally pretty much rebuilt my tri-pack on the road so I wouldn't be uncomfortable.
Sure.
This has been a rugged winter, as you guys know.
Absolutely.
I've run into some storms that were, "Hey, look, I don't know if I feel comfortable. Pull over, park, don't worry about it. We can change the appointment time."
Right.
Not one snotty attitude about it. And I was driving up through Illinois one time. My driver manager calls me and tells me, "Where are you?" And I told him where I was, and he said, there's an ice storm that's going to be coming through. Just when you get up to this Love's or this mom and pop that I told him I was near, go ahead and park it just for safety's sake." You don't know what that means to a driver.
Right. Versus being told, just
you
get
sure
up
you
here.
can't push on through? You can drive 20 miles an hour, can't you?
Right.
That's not been the case. And the creature comforts in the truck, refrigerators, APUs, inverters. It's been good for my health. I quit drinking soda, started drinking water. I've gone from 440 pounds, and I'm down. I just went to the doctor. Started 3 weeks ago. I'm down 25 pounds.
Great.
And my goal is to get to about the 300-pound mark for my size.
Are you using any of the recipes our media guy Andrew's putting out there?
Yes, and I'm also inventing some.
Awesome.
I've got an electric skillet. I didn't want a microwave because I knew that's just convenient
Right.
food. And I got a nice electric skillet, and I'm making some killer food.
Well, good. Well, Andrew's behind the camera right now, but any recipes you guys have for him, any way that we can improve your lifestyle or help out, you know, even on the softer side of it all, the eating, the health, the daily maintenance of life, you know, we're here and open for this. But absolutely appreciate you coming in and at least sitting down with us and talking about your story. Anything you'd like to tell future drivers that might be out there looking?
If ask the questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions you might think will hurt the recruiter's feelings. It's your life out on the road.
Absolutely.
And when I was hired for Southeast Region, they asked me, do you mind running to Wisconsin? Because they told me I wouldn't go north of Indy.
Right.
Hardly ever. And I said, I don't mind it at all. So they run my rear end off, Atlanta, Florida to Wisconsin, and then I'm taking something back. And I love that. It's great miles. And so don't be afraid to ask the questions, but just know that it is what it is, that it is a family. If you mess up, they're going to call you on it. Don't be afraid to communicate, but give it a try. If you're thinking about, if you'd like to be home every weekend, home every couple weeks and make a good paycheck, drive good equipment. And I never wait for a load. I think I'm waiting for a load to come in that I'm going to take to Quincy, Michigan, and then pick up, do a drop and hook and go down to Atlanta again. And this will probably be the longest wait I've had because it didn't load till 9 o'clock.
Sure.
So.
And that's your trip home?
Yeah.
Good.
So give it a shot. It's well worth it. And you can find me on the Well page on Facebook if you have questions. I'll be glad to answer them.
Awesome. Great resource. And as I always tell drivers, you know, we spoke a little bit about the recruiting efforts, and I don't want to make this an event about recruiting, but if you do have questions, our drivers are really the best recruiters that we have. If you are looking for honest, sincere answers, a guy like Matt or any of our other drivers, they're going to tell you how it is. And, you know, some days it's not roses, and then some days it's really great. But trucking is trucking, but the company you work for is really important. So if you guys have any questions, you reach out to myself, to our recruiting team, through Facebook, if you're interested in applying, you can go to drivewell.com and apply online right there, or reach out to Matt on his Facebook page too. So I appreciate you coming in, sir.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for doing this video. We'll get you out there, and who knows, maybe you'll get famous, right?
All right. I expect another interview at my retirement.
You got it.
All right.
I'll be there. Thanks a lot, guys.